I'm so glad to be with you here on this first Sunday in August. My name is Reverend Dr. Alice Reid, and I am the spiritual leader here for Centers for Spiritual Living, Capistrano Valley, being hosted by the beautiful Baha'i community of San Clemente. Thank you. They have a lovely facility here, and we are so blessed to have landed here while we're in the in-between, the liminal space of looking for a new home. And so I'm really excited about today. One of the reasons I'm really excited about today is that it's my sister's birthday. Happy birthday, Lonnie Chavez. August 3rd. Do you know it's also Martha Stewart's birthday? And the reason I know that is because if you go into her home, it looks a lot like something Martha Stewart would do. So they have a lot in common. And it's Patrick's birthday today?
Yes.
Oh my God, I didn't know. That's awesome. And and for those of you who have birthdays before or after this day in August, we've got a special treat for you later. So we'll definitely recognize all of you because birthdays are amazing. I want to start out with a reading from this month's Science of Mind magazine, which is available in the lobby, because if you don't know the wisdom of Dr. Michelle Medrano, she is the author of the guides this month, and within the magazine are 31 days of guiding us through her exploration of self-love. And this has been really powerful for me as I've been reading it. She starts out her comments simply saying, "Do you love you? What if self-love is the lodestone of life?" What a question to begin August with. And so I encourage you to check out the daily readings from Michelle Medrano in the lobby. And, these are bi-monthly magazines. And so for the very inexpensive price of $12 an issue, you'll get 2 magazines. All right. So as has been, people have been building up to it, this month's theme is indeed love. All year, we're looking at this idea of going higher, rising higher, growing deeper. And this month's theme is on the wings of love. And we are going to take you on a journey through as we launch into love and ascent and soar, and then there'll be a little turbulence, but we'll descend into our lives. And so there's a wonderful trajectory with the whole month's theme. You'll get to hear from Reverend Karen next week as she begins to bring some of her thoughts to this topic. We have 5 Sundays, and so while we'll share the stage with the Baha'i community on the 17th, we'll resume our inquiry. And I immediately, when I looked at this, I think to myself, love gets a lot of cheap press, doesn't it? Gets a lot of cheap press in the world. We hear about it all the time. There's beautiful posters, and you can get love jewelry and hearts and rainbows and unicorns. And but I would like for us to pause and maybe step back a little from our experience with love so that we can look at it with eyes anew. And in thinking about that, I remembered this amazing quote by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin as he writes, "Someday, after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And then, for the second time in the history of the world, humanity will have discovered fire." So that's the promise for this month, that we can dive deep into this topic of love and rediscover the fire of love that is at the heart of life itself. And every journey that you go on has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so as we launch this topic this week of launching in love, I added the idea of with an open heart. With an open heart, because it requires us, if we're going to really rediscover love, like for the second time in the history of the world, rediscovering fire, we need to come to it with an open heart. We need to come to it with an open mind, being willing to look at love from a new perspective. And Ernest Holmes has this famous quote, "Love points the way, and the law makes the way possible." But I think there's a little piece in the middle that we could add to this. It's a beautiful quote. It really is, this idea that love is going to point us in the direction of our good, and that the law or spirit is going to simply say yes to that and make it possible. But I think there's a step in the middle of it that can be really helpful for us. And so I reworded it in my own to say, love points the way, forgiveness makes the way clear, and the law makes the way possible. Forgiveness makes the way clear. For what I know about love is that it is the energy of spirit that uses our human experience as a conduit to express itself out in the world. We have an opportunity to be that clear place that spirit can sift itself through us so that we can walk out in the world, in our relationships, in the way we behave, and in the things we say, and the words that pass our lips. We have the opportunity to be God as love in our experience. What I know about the creative life force itself is it only gives of itself. There's no transactional relationship. Now, I know that for some of us who might have grown up in a Judo-Christian background, we might have been introduced to a deity that had a kind of transactional relationship with us where we would, if we were good, we could earn God's love. We talked a little bit about that last week. But what I know about creation, when I was introduced to this philosophy and somebody told me that spirit wanted nothing from me except to express it as me, wow, that was like, it was a really new idea for a girl that came up Catholic Christian. I had a very different relationship with spirit. And so this idea that love is pouring itself into humanity so it can experience itself as love is a powerful idea that I want us to begin to really explore this month in a intentional and conscious way. And there's a wonderful Buddhist idea, if you will, this framework that I was introduced to through this month's theme, called the 4 Immeasurable Minds. The 4 Immeasurable Minds. Has anybody heard that before? I hadn't heard of it before last week when I started digging deep into this month's theme. And so I want to share some of that with you, because these 4 immeasurable minds are portals to divine love. Portals to divine love that we can begin to explore as we are looking at rediscovering love in our lives from a new perspective. And so the first immeasurable mind is loving kindness. Some of this is going to be familiar to you, but it's just the way it's framed. The first portal of immeasurable mind is loving kindness, this purest essence of love that always gives of itself. I've kind of been talking about it already. Holmes talks about it as love pointing the way. It is that movement of energy in a gentle and loving way. Compassion is the second immeasurable mind, and that is forgiveness in action. And not forgiveness in maybe the common traditional sense where you have a rift in a relationship and you try to amend that relationship, but it's more this idea of letting go and releasing and having enough compassion to see past whatever the obstacle is. Compassion gives us the the opportunity to really see someone else's human struggle with a gentle eye and a loving heart. And compassion has a close relationship with empathy. And empathy is where we really understand what someone else is going through. And so that's the second portal. The third portal of immeasurable mind is joy. And joy is noticing and recognizing how love feels when we are open to it, when our hearts are open, when it's moving through us, when we allow it to pass through us and out into the world, and the joy of loving something or someone else. That joy we feel when we see them do well, when we see their lives open up, or even the joy we feel when we can connect with someone and support them when they're going through a difficult time or struggle. There's joy in that too. And so that's the third immeasurable mind. And the fourth is a big fancy word, equanimity. Equanimity. And equanimity is this idea that love is the great equalizer. And that we can recognize it's difficult when you decide to use the word to define the word. As I was just about to do. Equanimity is this place that we can enter where we begin to understand oneness. We begin to understand that we are all of God design. We're all human. We all have challenges. We all have wonderful things that happen and everything in between. And there's an equanimity to life when we can find ourselves on that equal playing ground with one another. And for me, that also leads me to, and it's a little bit, I'm straying a little bit from the formal definition, but this idea that I can trust love. I can trust love to support me, just like I can trust it to support you. I can trust it to support the people I love, and I have to trust it to support the people I'm not so fond of in the moment. That because the Spirit has an equanimity about it. It gives to all life equally. And so I can trust that. I can trust that somebody else's good is not going to take my good. So it's a big idea. And so we have these four immeasurable minds, these portals that we can use as we begin to look at love and how we can have a new experience with it in a deeper and more real and lived experience with love. And we are always invited to actively and consciously cultivate these four immeasurables in our lives. Holmes wrote in Love and the Law, there is no law of limitation, but only of liberty. And I think that the only thing that keeps us sort of not having that experience of open-hearted love are the things that we get attached to, the things that take us out of alignment with this givingness of Spirit that wants to pour itself into life through us. And in this philosophy, we have a very strong principle about creation and how it moves from the divine mind in through our mind and out into the world. And I like to give it a little shorthand when I say everything is created twice. First in mind, with a capital M, and then second in form or experience. And so because we're working with this wonderful grand design of creation, we have agency. We have the ability to participate in what we want to experience in the world. And so if we're talking about this idea of love pointing the way and the law making it possible, we have to remember that our consciousness is in the mix. Our thinking, our beliefs, the values we carry, the experiences we carry is also in this mix of what we experience. And that's the good news, and that's the bad news. The good news is we have agency in how life creates through us. And the bad news is that it's creating through us whether we know it or not. And so we have this opportunity when we're looking at forgiveness which again is more about release and alignment than it is about an apology, we can begin to look at those places where we're not experiencing love. And we can reflect on what it is that might be in the way. Perhaps there's something I need to release, and I'm using the term forgiveness to really draw through this whole process of rediscovering fire as love, that we can begin to explore where it is we need to let go, or where it is we need to release something. And sometimes I have had experiences with forgiveness where it was as easy as 1, 2, 3. It was easy for me to simply, somebody sent me an email and said something in a harsh tone, and I knew they were busy, and it was easy to forgive. And sometimes the forgiveness that I have to lean into is a little more challenging, and I would go so far as to say it even has layers. It has layers to it. And it seems like there are as many paths to forgiveness as there are people who want to experience forgiveness, right? I mean, everybody's got an idea about it. And what I want to suggest is that for us to really experience love in a new way, it requires us to open our heart. And sometimes we don't even know that our heart isn't open. And so my personal experience is often that those subtle places where I'm not aware. I have blind spots. Anybody else have blind spots? Yeah. I have these blind spots. I don't even know that I'm carrying a resentment about something. And this idea of resentment has taken a new meaning to me recently, because I always thought of resentment as that, like, holding a grudge. But resentment is that energy of re-feeling something and engaging in a pattern of thought and idea that we don't even know we're carrying. It's like so close to us, we don't even realize that it's a resentment, and that's where the blind spot comes in. And so recently I had an opportunity to do some forgiveness work, and that work really had to do with a pattern that I noticed showing up in my relationships. Now, and that I could sort of peel off the layers and see that a lot of it was born in my relationship with my father. And now my father passed in 2014 unexpectedly, and before he passed, we had done a lot of wonderful healing work, and we were on very good terms. We had a great relationship. It was a shock when he passed, and I missed him and still miss him very much. But when I noticed some patterns that were a little ouchy for me, I did some reflection work, and I could begin to see some patterns that were born in my relationship with my father so very long ago that were so subtle, I didn't even connect them. I just had some, and I'm not going to give you all my dirty laundry up here, but I will tell you that that there were some patterns that I could see repeating in my life, and I had no clue that it was my father that was, and that relationship that was repeating itself in my life. And the reason I share this with you is because because sometimes we don't see it. We don't see the subtle patterns that show up until, and as in my case, I allowed myself to have the feelings around those patterns. Like I was seeing the patterns express in my life, in my relationships. I was doing some reflection work because I didn't like how I was feeling inside, and I was sort of, proverbially, down on my knees, like, I'm really tired of this pattern, Spirit. I want to change my thinking so I can change my life. I came to that place of surrender and acceptance. And I have to tell you, like, within 24 hours, I was given guidance. And the pattern showed up like that. I was able to see what it was that I was stuck in, and I began to experience a freedom I hadn't experienced in a long time. And that is the fruit of forgiveness. Sometimes we think it's about that conflict in that relationship, but as we are, most of us are mature spiritual seekers in this room. You've probably been on the spiritual path for a number of years. You've done forgiveness work, you've done gratitude work, you've done prosperity work, you've done all of that, and maybe there's a place in your life where it's not quite clicking. That's usually your first clue that there's some forgiveness that needs to happen. And it doesn't mean that you have to go air your, dig up all that old stuff, but it does mean that we need to raise our awareness to what it is that might be an obstacle to having a wide open heart so that Spirit can move through us freely, that movement of love can flow through our life, outward, inward, like breath. And forgiveness promises to give us that powerful experience of an open heart when we're willing to sit with whatever is coming up for us in the moment. And sometimes it's too much for us to bear ourselves, right? And that's why we have practitioners, and that's why we have ministers, people in our community, and lay people. You may have a prayer partner that you can share this with and begin to explore what it is that wants to be released. And I promise you, I guarantee you, actually, money back guarantee, right? I guarantee you, if you're willing to do the work, there is a wealth of freedom on the other side of this. And when we allow ourselves to step into the work of forgiveness practice, things change. Things change. Things open up. We begin to see life in a new way. And so my invitation to you this month, as we explore this idea of being on the wings of love and this journey through love, is to be willing to do some reflection. And so each week, with the exception of the week that Baha'i does their soul journey, we will be providing some reflection questions for you to consider. And we'll put them on the blog, and I'll also put them, I have a Substack, so I'll put them in my Substack posting, and you can do some reflection work. And so the first 3 questions for this month that I want you to consider. Where in my life am I ready to say yes to more love? Where in my life am I ready to say yes to more love? And I've given these questions to Mary, so if you go to Conscious Connections, you can explore them. The second question: what belief or thought pattern do I need to release or forgive within myself? What belief or thought pattern do I need to release or forgive within myself? And the third reflection question: is there someone I need to forgive, if only in my heart? Is there someone I need to forgive, if only in my heart? So that's the launch of love this month, as we begin to look for those places in us that might be standing guard. Because sometimes when we hold back, sometimes when we aren't willing to step into forgiveness, we think it's protecting us, but it's also keeping us separate and apart. And it's also giving us a more condensed or compressed experience of love. And I want it all. How about you? Yeah. I want to feel the free-flowing movement of Spirit in my body temple. I want to feel it in my relationships. I want to feel it in my work. I want to feel it in my home. I want to feel it in my wallet. I want to feel it in all those places. Because freedom is the fruit. And when we're free, we have an opportunity to walk this out in the world in a way that gives other people freedom. And it's contagious. So as you look at these reflection questions, I invite you to remember those four immeasurable minds, to be loving and kind with yourself, to be compassionate with yourself, to find joy in the discoveries, and to recognize that equanimity, that Spirit is supporting all of us equally. There is no private good. Thank you very much. So join me in this affirmative prayer to support you as you launch for love as well, knowing that the power and the presence of the one mind and the one heart, its only desire is to give of itself and to recreate itself as our own lives. And so I know for each one that we say yes to love. We say yes to creation. We say yes to the dissolving of anything that might be standing in the way of a full-hearted, all-in love experience. And so I know as we walk this out this month, as we begin to rediscover fire for the second time in history, that we lean in with open hearts, that we are guided, guarded, and directed, that the support just comes out of thin air, that all of it, the discovery, the journey, all of it is supported by that one mind, that one heart, that one power that just wants to express itself fully and authentically as you. And so I know for each one as we move through this time together, this discovery path, that we are open-hearted, that we are supported, that we know love in a way we hadn't before, and that freedom is the place that we land. And so it is with a grateful heart that I speak this word, that indeed love has pointed the way, and I know the law makes it possible, and I know forgiveness is part of that pathway. And so I trust it. I trust it with all my being, and I let it go. And together we say, and so it is.